welcome to the show.
Bro, you can't tell me this didn't go back in the early 2000. Wow.
Nobody said it didn't go, man.
2005.
We're on the same page.
Mic check, mic check, mic check. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Infusion Breakdown Show. As always, it's your boy Joshua Freeman. To my left, I got Mr. Brian Carey. To my right, I got Mr. Desmond Tillman. You over there rocking the Trey songs. When did that come out?
2005, bro. I was in like
I was in fifth grade.
Fourth going in fifth grade, or fifth going into sixth, one or two.
Ain't you a year older?
Nah, I'm 24, bro.
Yeah, but you're gonna be 25 later this year, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna be 25 on the 27th. I'm old as hell.
You gonna put your Cash App in your bio like everybody else do?
What you take me for, man?
Does that actually work? But I don't care.
I was being facetious.
Speaking of
it's mad corny.
Speaking of Trey songs and love, when it comes to the topic, that's
you thought you was about to do something?
Yeah.
I was about to say, you looked at me like, what? But
nah, you thought you was about to play that thing smooth.
I was, until he looked at me crazy.
Speaking of Trey songs,
but the topic we have on the docket today is what's the difference between being in love and falling in love. So, what do you guys think? Remember, comment below, let us know, okay? Yeah. Also, we have timestamps in the description below. Go down there, see what you want to watch, and click, okay? So I don't know who wants to go first.
Bro, you know this conversation would have been really good with like a female guest. You got 3 niggas up here talking about falling.
So hold on, you just gonna discredit anything we gotta say because of the chromosome pairing we have?
Go ahead, bro. I'm listening.
Nah, I think you should go first just because of that BS you pulled.
What's the
Y chromosomes? We don't know anything, right? Invalid.
Not in today's society.
Man, what is the difference? Is there a difference?
Definitely. The difference, I draw the distinction between it being on the fact of intention. So falling in love implies that it's accidental or something that was just occurred by happen chance. Whereas being in love is something that you're actively making an effort to improve or express. So love itself, I view it as it's a verb. It's not necessarily just a feeling. It's more than that. Because if you actually love somebody, you're actually going to act it out and behave in a way that is self-evident. That person's going to know. So by that definition, the difference between the two is the intention.
Okay. I always took it as falling in love as the actual
moment of realization.
Exactly, the moment of realization, like, oh shoot, I'm falling for this person. Like I actually love this person. While being in love is basically showing that you're actually in love, like, or rather expressing how you're in love. But,
so falling is a precursor.
Yeah, that's
so
how
you can almost say that falling in love is the admittance of ignorance that you're already in love.
You're admitting the ignorance.
Like I'm saying, you can. I don't think there's just a point where like, okay, I'm not gonna say there isn't, but there's a point where you're like, oh shit, I actually love this person. That's the falling in love. Mm-hmm. But what's to say you didn't already love that person? It's now just becoming blatantly clear. Like, what's to say that falling in love is just you realizing the ignorance that you already are in love with that person.
I feel like you saying ignorance is a strong word, though.
Am I saying it's a strong word?
No, I feel like you're using it as a strong word. Like, oh, you're always ignorant. Like, oh, no.
Ignorant. No, just its definition of not knowing.
Yeah, not.
Okay, that's how I was just taking it as, like, you saying it like, oh, I'm just ignorant because I don't know how I feel about this person.
I think the realization point is a very valuable point to make too, because I can definitely think with like my most recent experiences where there was a definite point where I realized that, oh, this person actually cared for me in a way that was more than what I was used to, and it made me appreciate it more. And I can actually think about what the exact moment was. And so, you're not able to do that?
No, I think the only qualm I have with that is like you realize what the person was doing rather than you realizing how you actually felt about
I was thinking that too.
So there was more to it than it was like a process, because of course you're both putting an effort. And then you realize something, and then you see like, wow, this is really how this person sees me. I could see myself being with this person, or I want to step my effort up because of that. It's a point of realization to apply that effort, because like I said, you have to be intentional about things like this. Otherwise, you'll be dictated by things around you.
It kind of sounds like you're saying you need their realization for you to realize yourself, like, oh, I'm falling for this person. Kinda. That's kind of what it seems like. That's you're saying.
I mean, not saying it can't happen the other way, but with my experience, that's what it was.
Okay.
I can't speak for you guys.
I had a conversation with one of my co-workers. She's a fairly older lady, and she talked about how she realized her and her husband both were taking each other for granted when he had lung cancer. And the thing that she said that really stepped up the appreciation for love and the marriage itself, not for each other, but just the love in the marriage, because I feel like what she was essentially trying to say was, as you start to do things out of love and as you start to respect the marriage itself, the actions are going to align with that, because you're essentially in your mind telling yourself what your values are, and you're saying how you're going to display stuff through those values rather than looking at it and saying like, this is how I need to satisfy this person. So she said that once she started just doing things because they knew they needed to be done rather than doing them with the intentions of something being reciprocated, that's when her like relationship like elevated. So I think,
is that your definition of love?
No, I'm just giving an example, because I was kind of basing it off of like what you were saying. Like when I thought you were going to give your example, I thought you were going to say like when you realized it, rather than saying you realized it when you realized what somebody was doing for you, rather than you sitting here saying like, I kind of like realized I was in love when I started doing things that I wouldn't naturally do for somebody. Like and essentially in the in the sense of when you realize you finally put your guard down, when you're willing to just be your raw organic self, rather than looking at yourself through somebody else's lenses of trying to make sure you're doing the right thing, or how they perceive you is what you want them to perceive you as.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So I think my definition in itself, I think it kind of goes into what I candidly said when everything started, was I think falling in love is just ignorantly realizing that you've been in love. You just in that moment saw it for what it was. Like you could essentially have been committing this behavior for like a couple weeks, a month or so, and you just now realized it because you're like, oh shit, this isn't something I normally do. Like for me, I know it's very much possible for somebody to catch it on the very first time that they do it, but for some people they can like subconsciously commit the same act over and over again, and then catch it like at some point later down the line and think like, damn, I really do love this person. Like this is my coming to realization moment that I'm in love, rather than realizing that these are actions you've been doing for weeks and months. You've been in love. You just never like mentally came to the conclusion that you are.
So my question to you is, what's the precursor to love? Because with my experience that I was relaying was that prior to that, there was effort put towards it. There was a lot of effort. Yeah. But then at a certain point I realized, okay, it's okay to even step up even more. So that is indicative of me outlining there's a stage. So you don't just go from like being complete strangers with somebody to just loving them. Yeah. You don't. So what's the precursor then, according to you?
I'd have to say that the precursor to love is kind of like, I mean, would you expect something along the lines of me saying like lust?
No.
Okay, cool.
I would hope you wouldn't take that.
No. One thing I was gonna say was that, I think have we had a conversation about lust turning into love?
You have, yeah. Well, you spoke on that.
I don't remember what I said. I feel like how I feel about it, I wouldn't have said that lust can turn into love. Did I say that?
No.
On that topic.
Cool. All right, cool. So I want to make sure that I'm consistent with my thoughts. Some people might feel that lust turns into love, but I don't believe that. So that's not going to be my precursor. I think the precursor to like falling in love is comfort. Comfort in the sense of not being content where you're at, but comfort in the sense of being able to begin to open up. Because I mean, we can sit here and we can define it as the dating or talking phase. That could be your precursor. But even then, people can be in this talking and dating phase and never feel 100% comfortable with somebody.
True.
I feel like, in a sense, in order for something to materialize into love or have that coming to realization moment that you are in love, which what you guys have defined as, falling in love, the precursor to that has to be, the comfort to even get to that point. Like, you have to be comfortable with somebody to even, I'm gonna say that you have to be comfortable with somebody to even get to that point to realize you're in love or to fall in love with them. And I think that if you are comfortable with somebody that doesn't necessarily benefit your well-being or reciprocate that energy, then I think that's when lust comes into play. Because I know at times people say, well, I'm really comfortable with,
On whose part? Lust on your part or theirs?
the person committing the acts of comfort.
Okay.
You on the same page?
The comfortable part.
Yeah, okay. So I think that's when things come into lust, because people can sit here and say that, I feel this way about that person, and you could sit here and say, like, yeah, I was in love with that person, but in a sense, love is supposed to be like healthy and beneficial for both parties. This isn't supposed to be where like you feel something in regards to one person that isn't willing to reciprocate. I think that's like confusion, and when it comes into confusion, that's where you kind of like tie all that stuff into lust. Whereas
so it has to be reciprocated for it to be actual love. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you just said?
I think there has to be some form of reciprocation, but I'm not going to say that it needs to be necessarily reciprocation, because if somebody is giving acts of genuine love, and even if they aren't getting it back, if it's not detrimental to their being and if it's not unhealthy, then it doesn't have to necessarily be reciprocated.
Okay, I want to say.
And reason why I just say that is just because there's never going to be a time, regardless of how you want to look at it, that a relationship is going to be 100% 50-50. So there's going to be times where you're going to feel like stuff isn't reciprocated. And I mean, during those times, you are going to question stuff, but that doesn't make, it any less, disingenuous or, less love, if you want to say. I don't know how you want to
I think you were speaking more so along the lines of like love between two people, because I mean, we all know that you can love somebody without them loving you back.
Yeah.
You can do that. But what you were speaking on was the dynamic between two parties that is mutual.
Yeah.
Okay. You say, I forgot what exactly you said, but do you think it's possible for a person to be like that falling in love stage, like the realization, like, oh, I'm in love, then later we're like, wait, I wasn't in love? Do you think that can happen?
Yeah, I think it happens all the time. I think a lot of people...
Does it mean it's not genuine? Does it mean that love wasn't a real feeling?
I feel like for you to say you have fallen in love with somebody is like to admit that even when you guys fall out of love, there's still going to be love there for that person. If you guys fall out of love and there is hatred, then it was never really love to begin with.
I disagree with that.
For real?
Yeah.
I kind of figured you would, but go on.
You figured I would?
Yeah, I kind of figured you would. That's why I asked the question. But you go ahead.
Once disrespect is involved, it changes the dynamic, the way I view a person.
I didn't say that, necessarily that, when disrespect is involved that you just lose love for the person. I think when disrespect is involved, you lose respect for the person. But the two, respect and love, aren't.
Love is still when you want, I mean, I hate to sound, this is not malicious, it's honest. So love is when you actually have somebody's best interest at heart. That's a key component of it, right? So
why would you say that's malicious stuff?
Hold on, you accept that, right?
Yeah.
So by that token, so if someone crosses that line with disrespect, so not going into specific examples or anything like that, but you no longer view that person the same way because they chose to move a certain way, and you no longer care. Like if the person, if they're doing well, that's cool. If they're not, that's cool. Like you really have no care. You could care less if they disappeared. Like they do not exist. What's your take on that? Does that mean that I never loved the person in the first place?
I would question the severity of it.
The severity of
what you felt
the
in
initial
that moment.
feeling that I perceived at the beginning. Okay.
Yeah. Because I mean, I feel like there's never. I'm going to say it is very possible for you to, love and forget if the love that replaces what once was is just that damn good. But then at the same time, I'm also going to say that, when you love someone and you fall out of love with it, whether however you want to say it goes, it gets to the point where it's like pitching off of taking off from what you're saying a little bit, like you don't care about the person in the sense of your involvement with their life, but you still wish them the best. Like you wouldn't want anything bad to happen to them. Like you still want them to be successful in their own being without you being involved. Like you still have that, like, desire for them to be somebody. Mm-hmm. You have that desire for them to be somebody, but it's not a desire that's pulling away from you as a person. Like there's not a desire for you to help them become the person and thus staying friends or things of that nature. It's like I care for this person once, I'm gonna always care for them, I'm gonna wish them the best, but I also know what's best for me, and that is for you to, or for me not to be involved with that person. Because I think you can love someone, but then at the same time you also have the love and respect for yourself. And so how I feel about your example, it is very, very, very much possible for what you're saying to happen. But then at the same time, I think you're also going to sit here and question, how much you love that person at the time. Because it is possible for you to love somebody, and there are multiple levels of love, but for you to be in that beginner phase of love and then something like that happens, and you kind of it might be one of those things where you're calling them their character and who they are into question so much that it overshadows what that love originally was. Where sometimes, the love is so great, but then it might not necessarily be beneficial to what you want at a time, and you guys agree to separate. It's not going to turn into like, there could be a separation in the sense of somebody doesn't want to let go, or, it's a toxic separation. But then at the same time, there's still going to be a point where like you're going to want that person to succeed in life. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think that, the love remains, but it's not materialized anymore.
I've experienced both sides of it. The example that I brought to the forefront was actually a more distant example, to where I no longer had any care for that person whatsoever. Either way, positive or negative.
Do you think you don't have that care because you don't think about the person, or like it's just that far removed, like you're so consumed in what your life is now that you don't have time to think about that person, or is it just you just don't care?
I think it's a mixture, really.
You feel like it's a mixture?
Initially, it was because how a lot of times like you yearn for what you used to have, or like you still feel a connection to the person, but at a certain point, like I felt that the disappointment and just the disrespect, it was just like, what's the point? Yeah. It was like a switch.
That's good to have, though. That means
like for me, self-respect is at like the core of everything. Like there's no one on this planet that I respect more than myself.
You mentioned levels of love. I think you guys are looking at it as far as like different levels. Do you guys feel there's a difference between being in love and loving someone? Being in love and loving someone.
Yeah.
You do?
Because you can love somebody. So love is in itself is not necessarily romantic. So like you could love your friends. That's a verb. But to be in love with somebody, that's more so with a romantic connotation.
Yeah, because talking about, because I feel he's talking about just loving someone after the fact, like after you guys have had your difficulties, and like say for instance like two people that broke up, like divorce and have a single child, and like they used to have love for that person, like you were saying, you used to have love for that person, but you're not in love with that person. Because I feel you guys are talking about it a little bit different. I think you're talking about still being in love with that person, while you're talking about just having love for that person. And that's why I feel
that example is very different, because you have a shared mutual interest. Because it's in your best interest that the other person is doing well, because you have a child.
But were you going to say something else?
No, because I think we know that, Brian is going to look at every single aspect. And I think that sometimes you kind of feed into those aspects by like bringing up the aspect of like, or bringing up the example of a kid being involved. Sometimes I don't think a kid or mutual interest need to be involved for there still to be, you know,
it doesn't
love there for somebody.
Yeah, it could just be two people that broke up. Yeah,
I'm agreeing with you. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it could just be two people that broke up. And
so what was the distinction that you made that I was going to?
Oh no, because like I know how you are. You're very very like analytical with it, and as soon as you know you bring up an aspect of something that might involve mutual, like you bring a kid into the situation, well, it's no longer about the two people. It's about how the two people coincide with each other for the betterment of the third party.
Well, you know that more than anybody else. Like, you're a parent.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying though. Like, once you bring in another party, it's no longer just about like what we're describing it as right now. Then you're opening up another can of worms. Whereas it's like, is it really, you know, do you really have love for that person because, you know,
it was an obligation?
Yeah, because you feel obligated to, or do you actually have love for that person?
What are your thoughts, Josh?
About what exactly?
Your last question. Yeah.
Your example.
The possibility
when you bring in a
being
third
in
party
love and loving someone.
Yeah, there's a difference. Well, as far as if there's a difference?
Yeah, what is the difference?
No, I agree with you as far as the difference. One is romantically involved, while one is just having a deep care for that person, basically. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to ask if it was a difference. Do you guys feel it was a difference? Because I feel you guys were talking about in the same area, but on different wavelengths as far as what love was. That's but yeah.
Do you feel like that you can actually like, stop loving a person?
Loving just in general, or being in love with the person?
Why not both?
Okay, that's what I was about to ask you guys, but
part one and part two. Let's go.
being in love with a person, I feel. See, that's the thing. I feel it's different for other people because I feel okay. You can definitely fall out of love with a person, but as far as just loving someone, I feel that doesn't just go away. You know what I mean? So, like being in love with a person, say for instance, Desmond and Sydney, they're in love with each other and they break up. Like he will probably no longer be in love with her, but he will still have love for her because of because their relationship in the past. You know what I mean? Do you get what I'm?
No, I'm following.
Okay, I'll make sure. But yeah, that's how
I'm listening to your.
But yeah,
example.
I feel like you danced around it. You just provide an example with names of what the previous example was.
What do you mean?
Well, you had said like,
how does it? So I want to. By me asking that, I was trying to get from you. How does that particularly happen? So you said that it is possible.
How do we fall out of?
So what would that look like?
Falling out of love?
Yes. Like what would constitute or be grounds for someone to fall out of love? How does that occur? In your opinion, you're not an expert. None of us are.
Yeah, we're not experts. Falling out of love, I guess, just not feeling the same.
I'm gonna answer. I think what could constitute or provoke falling out of love is a shift in the love that once made you fall in love to begin with, where you're no longer receiving that same, attention or respect or whatever you want to call it. You're no longer receiving what originally made you fall in love to begin with. Because I think one thing that is overlooked in relationships is like you never get in a relationship and then just stop putting forth effort. Like you still have to put in the constant love or the constant effort to show the love every day and show it in new aspects. And then I feel like once complacency gets there, you can fall out of love. Like you're no longer in love with just what the relationship is now. You might still love the person and have love for that person, but you don't necessarily love them in the romantic way because the romanticy is not there anymore. It's more or less like
what they do, what they do for you.
Yeah, it's like it's just caught up in the relationship has now been caught up in the hardship of life, to where
like the honeymoon. They should say like the honeymoon stage is over. Like what's?
But I feel like the honeymoon stage is just BS to begin with.
Why you said that?
Because one thing I look at it as like you kind of look at something and people will sum it up as like the cupcake phase or the honeymoon phase, and I feel like just because the relationships have hardship doesn't mean that the honeymoon phase disappears. Like I feel like even through hardships you need to revert back to that honeymoon phase to constantly remind yourself of what love is to begin with. Because I feel like if you just get consumed up in arguments or just in the evolution or, of your life, then, you are going to fall out of love because you're not the same person you once were when you fell in love. Mm-hmm. And if that love isn't evolving with you as you're evolving as a person, then you're not going to be attracted to the same thing at 25 that you were attracted to at 19. You're not going to perceive love the same way you did at 19 as you do at 25. So if things aren't evolving, then it's very likely for you to fall out of love because you yearn for a different type of love that you once were looking for in your adolescence.
So one of two things. Either your ideal of the cupcake phase or the honeymoon phase, whichever the two you choose to call it, is wrong, or mine is wrong. So when I think of that,
I was about to say while he was saying it, I was like, maybe everybody else has a different definition. Yeah.
So with my idea, it's the honeymoon phase, like you saying,
is when everything's good.
Yeah. No, not just that. It's coupled with ignorance because you're blind to a lot of the things that the person does. Because you're infatuated.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
So by you becoming more familiar with the person,
I think that's what I was
like you're able to take the good and the bad.
Yeah.
So that part, the ignorance is no longer there. So by you reverting to ignorance and saying, "Oh well, I forget about all your bad habits and how you suck at communication and occasionally you don't wash the dishes and stuff like that," and then just keep reverting. It's very cyclical. I don't see the utility in that.
But I think the honeymoon phase is before any of those bad habits even start. I feel like the honeymoon phase literally is
there. Those habits are always
there. Yeah, they're always there, but you haven't faced the hardships to see bad communication yet. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? Like, you kind of witness bad communication when you start having your arguments. I feel like when arguments happen, that's when the honeymoon phase ends. You're starting to then see somebody for what they are, rather than those bad habits being there during the honeymoon phase and you're ignoring them and then they're coming out, at a later point. Because I feel like when you're in that honeymoon phase, that person consists a lot of like your thoughts. That person, exactly. So while I do agree in the sense of what you're saying, I'm also saying that what I view as a honeymoon phase or the cupcake phase, and when it ends is when like the arguments start to happen, and then it's a true test of if the relationship is even worth pursuing at that point.
And so
instead of realizing that the arguments and all that stuff it's part of a relationship. Like, there's plenty of things that I dislike that Sydney does, but I don't think the things that she does should turn around, like her bad habits should then sit here and say like, oh, I don't love you, because then that means I'm turning a blind eye to my own faults.
Right.
And I've always had these faults. So if I had the faults in the honeymoon phase, but they weren't necessarily showing in the honeymoon phase, what's to sit here and say like, okay, part of being in love is accepting the person for who you are. Part of being in love is maturing and realizing that loving somebody for who they are in that moment, while also presenting, things that you would like to see, you would like to do better, is just a part of like being uncomfortable and growing in itself. Being uncomfortable and growing in itself doesn't necessarily mean that the honeymoon phase needs to end. It just means that you need to do work with each other. So when you guys go back to showing that love or receiving that love, it's what it once was, rather than it being like a reluctance, if you understand. Like, I feel like sometimes we show love out of just, reluctance because we know that's what the person wants, or we want to keep things,
doing the bare minimum.
Doing the bare minimum so you don't have to hear somebody's mouth.
So I would also like to point out the fact that affection and affection is not mutually exclusive to the honeymoon phase.
No, it's not.
So I think a better analogy versus using just the honeymoon phase, because that's something that's very like moon phases, they're cyclical and they're all distinct.
Yeah.
So that the analogy, have you ever heard of like the rose-tinted glasses?
I have not.
So rose-tinted glasses are when you have like an optimized view of a person. Everything's perfect. They can do no wrong. You see them for the ideal. You project those ideas that you have of them on them. They're not the actual person.
So that's why you're...
So when you take the glasses off and you see them for who they are, and you still love them and you choose to be with them, I think that's a better analogy for a relationship.
Definitely. So that's where the concept of like ignorance comes into play, where you're looking at it. Okay, I can understand that.
It's like, it goes from, wow, she's perfect, she does X, Y, and Z, she can't do anything wrong. It's like, okay, well, yeah, she does these things, but I still love her for who she is, and I choose to stand by her, and this is who I want to be with. That's different.
Okay. I think that's like naive in this. Like how you're bringing it down, like this person does no wrong. I think that's like really naive. Like if you're in a relationship and at any point you
think
feel
no one says that explicitly.
I mean, but I think it's also just being realistic though at the same time. Like nobody says it explicitly, but if you think it, you should be mature enough to catch those thoughts when they happen. Not necessarily look for things to be wrong or like try and, defeat your own thoughts, but like I think this person is perfect, but I gotta find some flaw.
You never try to justify anybody's behavior.
Always.
That's a perfect example of doing that.
But if
upholding them to the ideal, this person wouldn't do that. You give them the benefit of the doubt when you know good and well what's going on.
I wouldn't say the person would do that. I try and understand why. I don't put anything above somebody. Like people are capable of doing whatever they choose to do.
They are.
For me, it's just understanding why they do it. Not necessarily saying like, oh, this person would never do it. Like I don't look at anybody and I don't say this person will never do that. But if they do it, then I want to understand why. What at that time happened that provoked you to do this? I don't necessarily care about like, proving me wrong. Mm-hmm. I want to know why. Because I don't put anything past anyone. Like people are human. I think we had this thought. We definitely had this thought where, people are selfish. They're going to do what they see fit for themselves.
But love isn't selfish.
At times, love isn't supposed to be selfish, but at times it is. Because to say you need to love yourself over the relationship with somebody else, that's selfish.
Definitely can be at times.
Yeah, selfish. Like I think it's the same way as the conversation that we had last week, as far as like when we're talking about race and social construct of biology. I think it is what you make it.
The way he was explaining love at first, though, is kind of selfish in itself, because he was saying like how the person made you feel. Yeah. So that's really kind of selfish in itself. Then you have the realization like, oh, I'm in love with this person because how you made me feel. So
I think that's a simplification.
You always think it's a simplification.
It is. For me to accurately convey what exactly happened, how I felt in that given moment, that required more time than I'm willing to put forward.
But I think you just using it how you stated it, it almost made it seem like you were looking for things to check off before you were willing to commit to yourself and say, all right, I'm falling in love with this person, or I actually love this person.
I feel like that's responsible, though.
Yeah, in a sense. Dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not selfish.
When you purchase a car, or you were shopping for a house,
to be responsible, to be disciplined, you have to be selfish. Yeah, in a sense.
But like when you make a major purchase, so a relationship is a major investment, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest investments you'll possibly.
We're not saying it's bad. We're not saying you're bad. You're bad.
I'm breaking down the thought process behind it.
But you're just defeating your own argument because you said love is supposed to be selfless.
Yeah, that's what you said.
You're about to give us example A, B, and C.
The example, so it's like once I find that this individual is worthy of that, then it's selfless. But prior to that, I don't just love the stranger. Is it somebody who's even worthy of that level, that amount of devotion, that amount of dedication, the amount of effort? You can't just be giving that shit out for free.
I was about to add that, but you interject though?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No.
You got a new car yet?
Nah, bro. I actually had to talk to my mom today.
So what are you doing, right? So you're comparing prices, right?
No, I'm not. I actually talked to my mom. I told her straight up. I told her. I actually had this conversation with her like 2 hours ago. I said, I thought about it over the weekend. I said I'd much rather buy, because she's in the market for a new car. She wants like a Lexus. And so she has a 2006 Honda Civic Si. And I said, I'd much rather buy this car from you and pay the insurance rather than buy a new car, pay a car note on top of the insurance. Because SI stands for sports injected. So, of course, insurance companies see that. They're going to want to put your rate up a little bit. But then I'm also thinking to myself, well, if I get a newer car and then I pay insurance, I'm going to be paying more than what the insurance for the SI would be. So I told her, I was like, they totaled my car out for a figure that I will not disclose. And I told her, you could just have that money, because it is a substantial amount, and put it towards a down payment on your car. Because she's buying a brand new car.
Right.
So I was like, you could, whatever money you were going to put down on the car, put some more on it. Lower your monthly rate to begin with. So it was one of those things where I was just like thinking what's beneficial for me. So in a way it is selfish, but then at the same time, it's economical.
So the car, that kind of didn't help the direction that I kind of was thinking that you were going to take.
No.
Well, with a major purchase, you weigh the pros and cons. You cross compare. You see, you have like a list of criteria by which you're evaluating against, and you're not just going to purchase something without making those evaluations. And I applied that same logic to every facet of my life.
No, we're not saying you shouldn't. You definitely should do that when you pick it apart. Definitely be like, hey, what
bad credit? Bring your ass here.
I'm not saying bad credit. Oh, nah, we can't work out.
Baby daddy in jail?
That's that could be a dope here. But what do you guys think, though? What's the difference between falling in love and being in love? Comment below, let us know, okay? But do you have a album of the week for us?
So I can only listen to but so much music throughout the week. So
I think about to say.
Been since I gave y'all.
I was about to say so much Nipsey throughout the week.
Been since I gave y'all Indigo last week. This week, well, for starters, I'm back in the gym now. I was out of the gym for like 2.5 months because I went to a chiropractor and they were talking about that I have like potential nerve damage in my right shoulder. So I took some time off, and now that I'm back in the gym, I have this playlist called Iron Paradise.
The Rock's gym.
It is definitely homage to The Rock. So if you follow me on, or you don't even got to follow me on Apple Music, you just search it. I don't really care about it. Search Iron Paradise and Apple Music. Give it a listen. I'll probably update it soon because I'm tired of listening to some of the songs up there. But if you're in the gym or if you're just looking for something to listen to, give it a listen.
How many songs is in your playlist?
Here this man go. We got this.
No, you don't have to give me exact numbers.
No, I mean it's a playlist that I've been curating since.
Cause you talking about like you sick of hearing the songs up there. You just listen to the same songs. Like how many songs do you have in this playlist?
No, it has 81.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a playlist I've been curating since the start of like last year.
Either you don't have that many songs in your actual library, iTunes library, or you don't really. You're picky about the type of songs that you put.
I originally had like 4,000 songs. No, I think I was pushing. So on my old iTunes library, I had close to 7,000, and then when I switched laptops, I lost about 3. It went to 4. Then I got another laptop, and I got my MacBook Air, and I was just like, I don't want to slow this computer down because this is going to be my computer that gets me through college, and I kind of let all that music go. Like I used to have like thousands of songs, so then it just got to the point where I was just using Apple Music and just taking what I want to listen to at the moment. Yeah, it's kind of like just letting go of that musical baggage.
Songs on my workout playlist.
Oh no, you tripping?
No, how am I tripping? I have a certain intro I want to start with, and I have like 5 different intros for each day, or I have like 10 because I go twice a day.
Would you expect anything else from Josh except for that?
I don't expect a lot.
Because I don't listen to the same songs.
Yeah. I don't really expect anything from anybody. I think people like what they like.
No, I'm saying like the way he's very planned out, and I'm having dedicated playlists for the dedicated days and different times in a specific sequence that he plays them in. That's behavior that I would expect from you.
I think expect is a wrong question for Desmond. Probably surprised. Are you really surprised?
No.
Probably a better question. But I got you. But yeah, that's what you heard it. The Iron what? Paradise. Sheesh. You guys don't look like The Rock so bad. But but you heard it here, folks. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Welcome to the show. Go and take a seat. Let's talk about the world while taking a sip of tea. A bunch of brothers come together. That's something we love to see. The company can't get no better. We come from running the streets, but we here now. The vibes all good. We survive. We gon' try and show the world inside the minds of some visionary brothers. We only got each other. We don't support each other. Ain't nobody gonna love us. We can talk about the violence, the silence, the Mayans, the stake that the minds in the science, defiance, living and dying and laughing and crying, pure bliss and heartache and quitting and trying. That's real from the heart, truth in the heart. So come up in the future, we just gotta play our part. Can we handle that? Let them tear us apart. Infusion breakdown show. Go and talk about your thought.
Wherever you want